and welcome to Conversations with me, your host Sarahina Mayoyo, a space that we've opened for us sisters to come together, talk over tea about our challenges, our issues, and come up with solutions for those challenges. Now, as women, we wear many hats and mostly at the same time. So it's to be expected that eventually we'll be juggling too many roles for one person to take.
Women are famously known for their multitasking skills, but this can be a gift and a curse.
Wow, so what we are finding out in this quote is that multitasking can be a blessing, but also a curse. Now, we know the positivity of multitasking, but I'm excited to find out what is this curse side to multitasking. So don't go anywhere because my co-host joins me to chat more about this topic. Welcome, Matseho, back to Chatting with Sarahina. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you just tell us a bit more about yourself and introduce yourself to us? Yeah.
Thank you very much for inviting me again, Sarah. My name is Matseho Njumbuka, and I'm actually a friend of the show.
Yeah, you are.
Yes, I'm a constant in the show. I'm a mother of three. And I'm a lover of life, a child of God, and a very good friend of yours.
Of course.
And I'm very excited to be here to be discussing another very exciting topic.
Okay, so today we're talking about multitasking.
Yes.
And we're talking about something very interesting, to look at multitasking as a blessing, which we all know, but also to look at it as a curse. And I want to know, did you know actually that there is a downside or a negativity to our multitasking as women?
I've never actually looked at it that way, but I know for myself, multitasking is a tricky one because I feel like my brain works at a different different range from other people, from other women,
All right.
because I only do one thing at a time. But on the flip side, though, compared to the male species, though, I may say that I do multitask.
Okay.
But I've never thought that there would be a negative aspect to it. I always thought like women get things done, and that's because we've got that multitasking layer to it.
And actually for me too, I've never thought, because we are brought up to actually take pride in our multitasking skill. We actually even lauded over the male species.
Yeah.
Uguti, we are better than them because they are so one-track minded, but we are able to do more things at the same time.
Yes,
And I think I want to bring this part across so that it doesn't look like we are demonizing multitasking.
Yeah.
It's actually good because, a lot of things wouldn't happen if women were not multitasking.
That is true.
So there is a lot of positivity to it, but also perhaps there's a downside that we don't look at as women.
Yes, that
And
we
we
don't
don't
consider.
see, and actually maybe can be detrimental to things. Now, for me as a coach, there's one principle that we always talk about in coaching, and that's the one thing rule. And the one thing rule talks about, or perhaps we help people try and focus on one thing, what you were saying earlier, because we've discovered that there is no person who can be fully attentive to anything if they are juggling. If you're juggling, then it means one thing is taking 10%, the other thing is taking 35, the other one has 50, right? So you can never say that you are giving 100% to everything, which means you're not doing anything to its full potential.
Sure. I've never looked at it that way.
Imagine a scenario where you are driving. And I think a lot of women are going to sort of relate to this. You're driving, and as you're driving, you're putting a bit of makeup whilst you're driving, right? And as you put that makeup, your toddler at the back is asking you questions that you have to answer to at the same time. Now, the problem there is that driving is getting maybe 50%. Makeup is getting 5%. The child is getting 10%. Where you are going is getting 30%. So you actually realize that your child starts doing things that are attention seeking because the child feels you're not giving me 100%.
Yeah.
And I think as women we become so we're not fair to other people because we expect them to take what we give them. This child see that I'm doing my best. Your child needs you and your 100%, right?
But on that very note, Sarah, and do you know, as it like you're correct in saying it's a blessing and it's a curse.
Exactly.
Because I feel like with multitasking, things get done, but they don't get done to their fullest potential.
That's the
Ne?
part.
But there aren't enough hours in the day, though.
There
Imagine if you were doing one thing at a time.
Now, I think then, perhaps later on in the conversation, we have to talk about the structure
Okay.
of this one thing doing.
Okay.
But for now, I just want to highlight this part for us to realize that, for instance, some people, we don't do our makeup the way we want because we're multitasking when we're doing it.
And you can easily get into a car accident because you are not fully aware of what's happening around you.
Some of us are known by our husbands to burn food.
Mhm.
Not because we can't cook,
But
but because
because-
my mind is on the pots and the phone and the child and the husband. So perhaps it speaks to us going back to start structuring things, because obviously now we have to put in a structure so that my husband can know that I'm able to be fully there for you at this time. My child can know that I can be fully there, because I think what the things around us and the people around us will appreciate is one moment of our 100% attention
Wow.
than
Wow.
many moments of 2%.
This literally reminds me of a conversation that we had this this very morning.
Yeah.
Where I was saying, like, someone said to me, "Listen, I'm not getting it. You're busy here, busy there, busy fixing everything else,
Yeah.
and you're not." And to find that even the things that I think I'm fixing are not fully.
So you're not happy all the time, and you're actually, your glass is half full.
Sure.
In fact, half empty, because you're running on empty, because everything. But also, let's come to us. How much of that percentage
Do
are
we
you
give
giving?
to ourselves?
Right?
Yikes.
So I think it's important for us to look at that, and perhaps look at some of the things that have been suffering in our lives. Some women are so angry, they don't understand. This man is so needy. I mean, this man always wants me to be looking at him all the time. But I don't think the man wants you to be looking at them all the time, but they would appreciate one moment where you are fully present. Not a moment where you give them what they, just take 5, because at the same time you're thinking of a report you have to, so I think they would appreciate you coming in and saying, you know what, not right now, but I will make time. And they would appreciate that more than you making them an idiot and saying that, no, I'm listening. I'm listening. But you're actually in a million places.
Yeah.
How
I
much
hear
how much
you.
sense does that make to you?
That
Because-
hit home.
Yeah.
That hit home.
I mean-
Because I'm definitely guilty of that.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I'm looking forward to the solutions.
Yeah.
Because it's really a matter of trying to get things done.
Yeah.
Things are not going to wait for you to avail time,
It's to make it.
Mhm.
It's to make it. And I think, so many things in our lives that are suffering. It's depending on this, things that are going well and that are suffering. It's connected to our multitasking, and I think that we now need to start opening up to looking at this multitasking and looking at how we can do it positively, because I said in the beginning, we're not trying to demonize it. We're not trying to say multitasking is bad, but what we're saying is, perhaps let's look at the detrimental side, the extreme side of multitasking, and then try and figure out, what we do there. But we'll continue with that after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Awesome.
Welcome back, and you are still watching Chatting with Sarahina. So before the break, we were talking about multitasking and actually looking at this aspect that we never, opened up to, that multitasking can be a curse, right? And we spoke about how we give the things in our lives small percentages, and we think that we are doing well. Kanti, actually, the truth is that things are not being done to their full potential because we're not giving our 100% to each thing, right?
Agreed.
And that's what we were talking about earlier, to say that even your family, you wouldn't understand why your family is complaining that we never feel you, but you think that you are giving them enough. Kanti, it's because they're just getting your 5%, right? Now, I want us to sort of shift this multitasking to a deeper level
Oh, it
and
gets
talk
deeper.
about multitasking in terms of our emotions. right?
Okay.
Because, there's juggling that happens in our emotions as
Really?
well. We've learned as women, I think, to be mbokodos.
Yeah.
Because we are taught that we are mbokodos, we are rocks, right? And as a result, sometimes I think we sort of have a complex when it comes to, expressing our real, true emotions.
Yeah.
And we juggle between the real and the fake emotions.
Mm.
So I'll make you an example. When it's time for you to be angry as a woman, maybe your husband did something to anger you, or your boss, or your child, you decide in that moment, perhaps because you're guilty, you're feeling guilty that you're not giving enough time to your child or to your husband, instead of being angry validly for what they've done to you right now,
Shelve it.
you are good. You become the superwoman to say, no, it's fine, it's all right. But then next month, your husband does something, maybe the same thing or something different. Then what happens there, because you've been juggling your real emotions, they start flooding in. And when you are talking to your husband now, you say, Awukali,
Even
this is
last
not the
man.
first time. This is not the first time you're doing this. And now a whole file comes and the person doesn't understand how.
Where
Kanti,
does this
last
come
month,
from?
yes, you said you were okay, you were fine. So where is this coming from? So I think we juggle our emotions, or we multitask with our emotions, in the sense that we don't allow the necessary emotions at the moment we should be. When you are supposed to be hurt, you act tough. You become mbokodo. But then later on in life, it hits you back because you've got a discrepancy in your emotions journey. You've got backlog in your emotions journey.
Nekwal.
Yes. And that's where sometimes we multitask, because we start juggling too many emotions at the same time. They start brewing, and when those things come out, it's like a lid fell off a pot boiling, and we become
I'll tell
dangerous.
you, like what you're saying, it makes so much sense. I've never thought of multitasking in an emotional aspect, and women really do that because we tend to really shelve our emotions, put them away, because
and we are
don't.
emotional beings.
And we're emotional beings, and mostly because we don't have time to deal with this right now.
Yeah.
I don't have time to deal with this right
That's
now.
actually the part of multitasking. I do not have time to deal with
I
this.
don't
now.
have time to deal with this right now. And when it decides to deal with you,
Ooh,
that's when the problem starts.
exactly.
That's when the problem. And I've never really. I always thought it's because as emotional beings, because we are emotional beings, we are stronger, so we are able to handle such things. But it's not necessarily handling it; it's putting it away.
Thank you.
But it's always there underlying, and it's
Yeah.
always there as an issue.
Yeah.
That's something
Handling.
else.
Yeah. It's not handling it. It's literally putting it under the carpet. It's not handling it. And I think you nailed it when you said, I don't have time to deal with this. That's how we multitask with emotions. But the
Exactly.
thing is, the emotion will come back to deal with you, But now also the other problem with that, multitasking of emotions is that we leave unfinished business everywhere we go. We go around starting chapters with other chapters open. Can you imagine reading a book full of chapters, like 10-chapter book, and you read half of chapter 1, you read a quarter of chapter 3, you read all of these little pieces of the book, and then you get to the end. You don't understand how this person got here. What kind of an ending is this to this book? But you never gave yourself time to actually, savor each
And be
chapter.
in the moment.
Now take that and apply it to our emotions and our journeys, Because we multitask so much, we have to juggle and do everything at the same time. We want to open everything at the same time. So let's take relationships, for instance. You go and you force yourself into a new relationship, a new chapter. There's a chapter not done, And what you did is you multitasked here. You said, you know what? You want to hurt me and whatnot. It's fine. I'm not dealing with this. Hello, Mr. New.
But okay, I hear that,
Yeah.
and I understand it completely.
Yeah.
But is it not a survival mechanism?
Okay.
ne?
Uh-huh.
In that yesterday one of the episodes we talked about toxic environments or toxic
behavior.
behavior.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's easier to just move away from a toxic behavior or walk away from a toxic behavior. And now I'm speaking to what you're talking about, leaving unclosed chapters. Imagine a friend does you wrong.
Yeah.
Hurts you so much, but because the friend doesn't understand that they did you wrong
Yeah.
and doesn't acknowledge or take it, you walk away from that chapter, you leave it. It's unclosed, but for you, as much as it hurts, you
It's
had to leave
important
it.
for you to walk away.
To walk away because it's toxic.
And right there in that point, walking away, it's important how you walk away. Because if you walk away having not dealt with the reason why you are walking away, there are wires attached to you, with you in that chapter. So which means that walking away is not the problem. Walking away from a situation and going to another one is not multitasking. It's not an issue of multitasking curse. Ne? What we're talking about here is that, did you close the chapter? Walking away is not the problem. Close the chapter, then walk away, but don't run. Don't walk away from something you didn't finish and close. So, a story in the Bible that I love about, when we're talking about unfinished business and unclosed chapters, is the story of Jacob and Esau.
Yeah.
Jacob ran his whole entire life. We can call it walking away. He walked away from all the situations, Laban, all of them. But it caught up with him at a point where he was supposed to break out and have a big breakthrough. And now a chapter that began the whole running called him. And now he had to face the decision of saying, do I get my breakthrough or what do I do? But you can't go into the breakthrough without going to close that chapter. And I think this one is a hot topic that I'd love, for us to have more time to talk about. So I think we need to go to a quick break. But after the break, we need to focus on this part where the breakthrough is right now, but there are unclosed chapters. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. So welcome back. I am still talking to Matseho on Chatting with Sarahina, and we're talking about multitasking. And we actually touched on, the mother load before the break, where we spoke about when you are on the verge of your breakthrough and then unclosed chapters come in and they actually delay or actually get you stuck, And I think, the example that we were making about Esau and Jacob. Jacob now was at this point, and now it was called upon him to go and close a chapter, because the way he left the relationship with his brother, and I think I want this to go to that point you were making of saying, it's good for me because this relationship is toxic. And of course, if the relationship is toxic, walk away, but how do you walk away? Because Jacob ran from the situation, you see. So Jacob now had to go back. And perhaps the going back was not to make friends with his brother, to get back with his brother, but it was to say, we need to close this chapter. We need to put a full stop.
It was for him.
Yeah.
It was for him.
Right? We need to put a full stop to this so that none of us are hanging. All right? And also, when I go to my next level, I don't make the people of the next chapter suffer because of an open chapter. All right? Can I give that to you?
Like, I feel like I don't even want to disturb you on that one, because that is the downfall of, I'd say, many relationships.
Yeah.
Be it marriage, be it friendship, be it even your work.
Yeah. Or your child.
Be it your child. That's one thing I wanted to bring in, that, if there's unfinished business from your past, your future is definitely going to be affected. Imagine your children suffering from the things that you did not resolve in your past. But it goes back to another thing that we spoke about in another episode of open wounds.
Yeah.
Of wounds.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to look at the things that have taken you off course.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to finish the business, and I guess it speaks to what I was saying about the how toxic the situation was, and even this person that you're going to go back and close the chapter with, will they even aid you in closing that chapter? Because as far as they're concerned, maybe they even feel that they were done wrong.
Yeah.
They don't even think that they were toxic to you. Maybe you were toxic to them as far as they're concerned. So now having to go back and start this conversation for your own
Closure.
closure. Like
It's and I think you bring an important part now, because I think a lot of times we make it about the other person too much.
okay.
When Jacob went to Esau, he did the exact same thing. He sent bribes,
Okay.
ne? Because he had this mindset that says, hey, I wonder if this toxic person is going to accept my now, gesture
Yeah.
of closure and all of that. And what God did with Jacob is that he didn't give him the satisfaction of telling him how Esau
do
was going
it.
to react.
Mhm.
How Esau was going to react, which means you go do it anyway, no matter how the other party is going to react, because it's not about the other party. You are going to close a chapter for yourself. So you're not going to that person to expect them to say sorry, to expect them to say, I understand. You are going to go and put a full stop to that chapter. You are not expecting the person to close the chapter for you. You are going to go and close that chapter yourself.
You need to expand further for me on that, because I'm thinking of a typical situation in my head where, let's say really I've wronged a person, and then I realize that or this person then walks away from me because they think, okay, fine, this environment is toxic or whatever. Now I go back to this person and say, listen, I realize I wronged you, and I forgive. And I'm asking for your forgiveness. And I'm sorry. I would really like to close this chapter.
Sure.
That person is not at that point in time is not even ready to close the chapter. What?
So remember, in that scenario now, you are the one who's wronged
Yes.
a person.
Mhm.
And now you are the one who's going to ask for forgiveness. See, I think we need to also understand, and I think this is supposed to be another topic.
Okay.
When we deal with forgiveness, it's not really mostly about hearing the other person say, I forgive you. It's about your repentance. It's about where you are, your level, when you are going to that person to say you are sorry. You have to afford the other person the right to respond the way they want. But when you go to them, you're not going to them to hear them say to you, I forgive you. You are going there to say that I am acknowledging that I wronged you. And please forgive me if you can. But I'm coming to say that I know that I wronged you and I'm sorry. Repentance. You're not going there to hear the other person say, I forgive you, because that's selfish.
Yeah.
You're expecting that person to just, because you said sorry.
Mhm.
No. Afford the person, the right to respond the way they want. But it's more intingawe.
But then if the person then says, you know what, I actually am not ready to deal with this, doesn't that leave the chapter open?
No.
Or does it leave it open for them? Okay.
For
Okay.
them, not for you. So we need to understand that the purpose of doing what we're doing, it's not about the other person. It's about me. The purpose why I praise God is it's not so that God can be an ATM to me. It's so that I can fill myself with God. It's about me, not about how He responds to what I'm doing. So we're not doing a performance here so that we can get an applause.
Yeah.
We are doing something that we believe and are convicted
Yes.
about. So when we are now engaging in this, so Jacob had to let go of how is Esau going to respond. He just had to say, I recognize that I wronged this man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to grovel
If I
on the
have to.
floor. And even until he got to his brother, he didn't know how his brother was going to react, because remember, the promise was that I'm going to kill him. But then the situation happens the way it should happen.
Yeah.
Right? So, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one. That's why I'm saying perhaps we need another
it needs
episode
it's a
for that
different
one.
angle
But
altogether.
I also want to bring in that one thing, scenario that we brought in. The one you said you actually want to understand. Uguti, aren't other things going to suffer now if I only do one thing at a time? And how do we
balance? How do we balance?
How do we balance? And I think, I'm going to make an example of myself. For a very long time, I tried juggling a lot of things, you know, in terms of business as well.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I sold shoes, I sold bags, I'm speaking here, I'm doing coaching there, you know, I'm designing here, I'm doing a lot of things. And honestly, I felt like I was stomping in the same place. I was busy. There was no one as busy as I was. You
In
phone
life.
me, I'm hectic. But
What are you
come
actually
and look for
doing?
results on the 31st of the month.
Sure.
Nothing. But I'm busy until I tried this one thing. And I said, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to only focus on my content.
Mm.
I'm not going to take it out. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to focus on my content. And what happened there is my content started building.
Mm.
I mean, as I always tell you that I've got 2 choir books at home lying around with content
so much
everywhere.
content, yeah.
And I built the content, but I didn't realize that as I was focusing on the content, when I would go to speak, it would be so authentic, what would come out, that it would actually replicate itself in other things that I'm not even focused on. And at the end of the day, I looked at Face Off, and I can't tell people how my company got to where it is now, because I never focused on the things that are now departments in my company.
Sure.
I just focused on one thing. So it means that, you know, the domino effect,
Yeah.
the domino game, the dominoes. The dominoes game are those pieces, you know, that go from 0 to 1, 1 to 100, I mean. So most of the time, we worry about each and every piece, how it's sitting. But what I realized with a domino is that you focus on the first one, ne? And then you go and you look at the last one, where it's supposed to end. And then from the end, as you look at the end piece, you look at the next one after you've looked at that one. You look at the next one. You look at the next one. As you go back, ne, you focus on each one. You don't put all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
You focus on each one, but you look at so the next one is influenced by
The
what you did
previous
with the
one.
first one. So you focused on 100. 99 is easier because you
You know,
focused on 100. And then when you get to 1, you just flip 1 and it goes you know, down to 100. So I realized that it's very important for us to understand that, you know, everything is connected to that one thing that you give your 100 to.
Sure.
All right?
So how then do you know what you give your 100 to? Because I'm thinking.
Can I just
Finish your
cut you?
example, okay.
No, I'm not going to finish. What I'm going to do is I'm going to allow us to have another platform to actually continue with this, because we are out of time.
No ways.
So thank you so much for joining us yet again. It's always lovely to have you, and thank you for everyone joining us. See you just now. The problem with multitasking is that you're always running and you never reach your full potential or your next level because of things that you never finalized. I mean, take Jacob, for instance. He couldn't get to his next, and it was a breakthrough that he was facing, but he had to go back and face his brother and go close a chapter that he left many years ago. So you may be asking yourself, where do I start then? Jacob is a perfect example of where to start. It means you have to go back like he did, to go and face those chapters. Go and find those places that you never closed and finalized but ran away from. And I mean, it will be painful. No one says it's going to be easy. Look at Jacob. Try comparing breaking a hip bone to changing your name, because his name has changed from deceiver, Jacob, to Israel, the promise of God. So, women, you can decide, because it's up to you, to just go back and free yourself from everything in your past and then walk powerfully into your full potential. Thank you so much for being part of our conversation yet again. Looking forward to seeing you in our next episode, same time, same place. Goodbye.